If Daniel has million number of fans, I am one of them.
Not this.
If Daniel has 10 fans, I am one of them. If Daniel have only one fan, and that is me. If Daniel has no fans, that means I am no more on the earth. If world against the Daniel, I am against the world. I love Daniel till my last breath. Die-hard fan of Daniel. Hit like if you think Daniel best player and smart in the world.
Starting out with the pasta, aren't we?
Starting out with the pasta, just drowning in pasta. But it is in fact Daniel's world, and we are in fact all living in it. And this is the Talkin Carball podcast. My name is Austin. I am joined by my friend Colin, and here we like to talk about professional Rocket League, which, of course, if you paid any attention to the North American Regional this weekend, Daniel absolutely took by storm.
Yes. It was a tournament of new rosters doing well, some new rosters failing, and then at the end, the inevitable, the general, taking the win.
Shaq must be so happy.
Oh, Shaq is loving it.
But we are definitely getting ahead of ourselves, which is hard not to. It was such a sick tournament this weekend. But before we do all that, of course, all the usuals. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe. If you're listening on Spotify, please follow. Follow our Twitter, where we now post sick graphics that Colin designs. And
what do you mean, our professional graphics department?
Our professional graphics department. Yeah, sorry, marketing's gonna kill me for that. But what else? Join our Discord. All the things. Do we have any news this week?
We have some news. Not really anything.
Oh baby,
crazy. SK Gaming announced Fruity, Econ, and Carrion as a roster. Yeah. I didn't even realize this Fruity was back, but I guess he is.
He is, and he's back on a big org. I think that he's got a pretty big brand in the Rocket League scene, so that's definitely appealing.
Yeah, they did not qualify, but they do exist.
This might be the only time we talk about this team. But it is cool to see Fruity back. Definitely a different type of roster than what he's worked with in the past. You know, usually on top tier rosters, especially during the reciprocity days. Now he's with Econ and Carrion, two French players who have, definitely appeared in some regionals, but are definitely not mainstays in the RLCS scene.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know. I don't think we'll be talking about this roster a whole lot.
Yeah, so we're going to see that as a pretty clean segue to the next piece.
Oh, to another roster that we will also probably not talk about a lot. Guild.
Oh my god.
Have announced CRR and have failed to make another regional. Getting swept by Navi in the 2-2 match of the close qualifier.
Yeah. Hey, at least they were close. That's all I got.
Yeah.
Before this happened, I was decently excited. I think this has been rumored for forever, so we talked about CRR, the prospect of him. But Guild's still doing Guild things despite having a new coach at Marquee and despite the new player in CRR. Maybe we'll see them next time. I think they can make at least one.
I would hope so.
I like that they were. Didn't they qualify for this? Like they didn't have to go through open quals because they had points from the fall, purely just because they auto qualified into the first regional.
Yeah, and really only because they wouldn't have, except two teams disbanded.
That is so funny. This was a top 4 team in Europe. They won didn't they win the last regional going into the RLCS major?
They might have. I don't know.
I'm 90% sure. Just what has happened to Guild? My god.
Yeah. The former Guild player Bluey recreated Savage with Compact and DeVoof.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know anything about them, but they made the close qualifier and did not qualify.
Yeah, this was sort of like we'd heard a lot of rumors and rumblings about the different bubble teams that were going to sort of perform, and with this tournament, we got to see the teams that actually made it. I think we'll talk more into details about sort of the standings there, but yeah, lots of exciting little teams that'll throw their hat in the ring every now and then.
Yep. What else? Williams Resolve is forming an academy team, which is pretty cool to see.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. Not to like turn this into a Valorant podcast, but Valorant has a very similar sort of system as Rocket League, where it's completely open, and the players hold the spots, not really the orgs. And there's a lot of conflict of interest in having academy teams because they can't really play in a lot of tournaments where they might run into their parent org and sort of weird stuff like that. And so we haven't really had that in Rocket League, but if it does start to become the norm, it's just going to make things very, very weird. It's going to be something new. So this will be a strange shift, but obviously it's a good opportunity for bubble players to hopefully get a salary.
Yeah, and I bet what it almost turned out to be, if they have like a star player in the academy, they might just get poached, to be honest, by a bigger org, and which would just, I guess, be maybe a source of income. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it would pretty much just operate the same as a transfer, and it would have the same sort of restrictions that you would have to only be able to replace one player a split unless because they couldn't be double listed as a sub.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean. Like as opposed to like professional sports and then esports that have franchises, having like academies and sort of like when there's a clear second tier, it's a lot easier. But with like how open RLCS is, it makes things very complicated. But there's not really downsides to it. It's just sort of strange.
Yeah. Other news. I wrote this down. Everyone hates the format, and by everyone I mean pretty much every player I've heard comment on the format says they hate it. Not necessarily the format, but the way the seating has worked is not great in my opinion. So the way the seating works is they take your score from the 3 most recent events, including majors, to find your seed. But to qualify, to get an auto qual, they take your score for the entire season. So, for example, in this first regional, version 1 was automatically qualified because they had the 8th most points. But because a significant amount of their points was in the first regional, that didn't count towards their seeding. So they were seeded, I believe, 9th or 10th even. And we ended up with a Group B group of G2, Ghost Gaming, who was a top 8 team, version 1, who's a top 8 team, and Shopify Rebellion, who was a top 5 team last season and just kind of had to play with a sub all split.
Yeah, not a great look. Yeah. It should 100% just be cumulative, right?
It should definitely be cumulative, and it's just kind of a weird system. Psyonix has been kind of inconsistent in the way they've seeded. Like at the beginning of the season, they just kind of guessed. Like it was based on like all season results, and they just kind of picked and chose who they wanted to be in. And then it was total points, and now it's over the last 3 events. It's still weird. So like even for this next event for NA, version 1 is still automatically qualified. Oxygen is not. But if Oxygen qualifies, Oxygen will be a higher seed than version 1.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, like what you outlined there, Psyonix aren't doing themselves any favors in sort of making things clear cut. But this is sort of like the difficult thing that happens when you try and run a completely open circuit, but then you also want to like reward teams with merit, is it just gets very, very cloudy. Whereas, was anyone complaining about specifically like the format of groups into the tournament, or is it mainly just the seeding?
think it was mostly seeding. I think a couple people were a little annoyed because the group stage meet is so important now. And so, like, if you don't win your group, you have to go through an absolute fight. But Space Station proved that it is possible. They didn't win the group, and they made it all the way to the grand final.
Yeah, I still stand by what I said last time, where I think I would prefer just top 2 of the groups going as a traditional double and bracket with 8 teams. But this definitely, the Space Station run was hyped to follow.
Yeah.
So, you want to ride that nice clean transition into the actual tournament?
All right. So let's start off with the group stage. So Group A was what we thought was going to be pretty clear cut. Turns out Vibrance, I think, is actually they're getting better, and I think they're a solid team at this point. Energy swept, which we predicted. We did not predict X-Set to go 0-3.
Yeah. That is like an abysmal result. I think both RBG and Vibrance are better than we and a lot of other people give credit to. I mean, even like they had the exact same game score, and when they played each other in round 3 for that completely pointless game, it went to game 5. So not like the end of the world for XSET. Like this isn't like not making quals bad, but you'd expect a lot more out of a team that was at times looking like they were going to qualify for the major.
I mean, X-Set, maybe it was just, I don't know, they're playing with the same roster, but maybe they took some time to get warmed up or something, because their best fight was against NRG, where they took them to game 5, but swept by RBG and then 1-3 to Vibrance.
Yeah, this feels a little bit just like a go next tournament for them. But
Yeah.
hype for Vibrance and RBG taking that misstep by a better team on paper and running with it. Both of them got to the second day, so props to them. Energy, not really much to talk about there.
Yeah. Let's see. Group B. Version 1, Shopify, G2, Ghost Gaming. So this is another issue I have with the format. There is no tiebreaker system. If you're tied in game score, it automatically goes to a tiebreaker match.
Okay.
So I don't like in this one, Shopify and V1 were both 2-1. Shopify had a better game score, but version 1 won the head-to-head matchup. Personally, not just saying this because version 1 would have won this way, I've always been a fan of head-to-head, but I understand game score has its merits. I just don't think I think tiebreaker matches should be reserved for an exact tie somehow. Because then they played a tiebreaker match, which meant the entire tournament had to be held up because there were games that had to happen after that.
Yeah, I don't think you're speaking from like a homer stance. I think from my perspective, head to head speaks way more than game score. And like game score is a nice way to sort of break things up if you don't have head to head. So
yeah,
I'm with you there, and I don't think that we should, from a format standpoint, you should default to having tiebreakers for everything you just said, where it holds up the tournament. It's kind of like weird psychologically for the players. Like they had to play the exact same team they just played twice. Like that's just strange. But as far as the outcome of the group was pretty sweet, actually, just from a Rocket League fan perspective. I think a lot of this group was stacked, and all these teams looked decent enough and performed well, especially your boys at V1 coming up with a 2-1 and winning the group. I guess 3-1, right?
Yes, 3-1 because they beat Shopify back-to-back times. Super clutch from the boys. They didn't have their best series to start off, but they turned it around, beat G2, beat Shopify again. G2 looked a little rough. They won.
Yeah, for sure.
And by a little rough, I mean pretty rough.
Yeah, you'd expect
was-
a lot better than that from them.
It was not great.
But it was just really refreshing to see V1 and Shopify back. I remember,
Absolutely.
I think it was in the V1 G2 series in the second round that was put on the broadcast, where Beast Mode just went up, pancaked off the ceiling, used the flip reset to put it top corner, and I was just like, I'm so happy that this guy is back. And now that Rapid and Memory are back in the scene too, this is just like more talent in NA. And we can talk later about just how deep it is, but this group is just shows like what kind of groups of death you can get just from having 4 solid teams together.
And not to make this a V1 podcast, as much as I would love to, but having Beast Mode on that roster just enabled Calm to do whatever the heck he wanted to do. He was driving around, getting demos, just kind of going ape all over the place.
I know at some point he was leading the tournament in saves. He was just fully enabled to do whatever the heck he wanted.
Yeah.
It's just absolutely absurd. But props to Shopify going to 8-5 in game score and just losing out in that tiebreaker to V1 after losing in game 5 in the third round. That's a good look for them. Ghost, not, kind of, I hate to kind of, we have a little bit of a meme on the show at this point about Ghost being unnotable, but this isn't like atrocious from them. This is just sort of like, okay, you got a bad group, weren't able to get it on the day, and yeah.
Yeah, they're better than, bottom 4, but it was a tough group for them.
Yeah, for sure. Going on to the next group. If you want to take this one too.
Well, this was FaZe, Space Station, Rogue, and Torrent. FaZe looked insane, especially day 1. They looked incredible. Space Station looked incredible. And it was it was a little sloppy, but it was a good series. Round 3, FaZe beating SSG to get that win. Rogue had 2 tough draws to start, getting swept but looking good against top teams, and then secured their advancement against Torrent.
Yeah, that anytime that FaZe and SSG play this season, it's going to be so freaking hype, dude. Just like I was just getting up and out of my chair every time watching. There's just so much playmaking ability on the field, and there's so many demos between First and Retals and Arsenal. So this group was just insane through and through. But there was very obviously a tier gap between the first 2 teams and the second 2 teams. Even though like Rogue if you look at 1 and 2, you're like, that's not bad. And then you look at the games where they went 3-7, their only 3 games were against Torrent. So,
Yeah, but they looked way better than they would have looked last split. Aqua, I believe, led the entire tournament in octane score.
Yeah, their entire offense was being run through him, which was exciting to see just because they looked completely lost in their offense last season. And he looks like not only is he obviously immensely mechanically talented, but he wants those moments. He wants the ball really badly, and he's able to take it and do amazing things. So much, much more optimism for Rogue moving forward than their past.
And then Group D, Oxygen, Complexity, Sonics, and then in dead last, Team Envy.
Pretty chalk group, right?
Oh yeah, everyone predicted Oxygen to win and Envy to go 0-3, right?
Yeah, like gimmick stocks couldn't have been higher coming into this, and obviously Oxygen against Complexity. Yeah, that's what I thought.
But yeah, congrats to Oxygen for coming out. They've shown time after time, if they can make the event, they will cause damage.
Yeah.
They have that ability to take out top teams. And they proved it winning that group. They didn't do much after the group stage, but winning the group gets you an automatic top 6, absolutely huge for them. Team Envy, we didn't have a lot of faith in them coming in, and we still had more faith than we should have.
Yeah, I think I said I don't see a world where they like, get dead last, and well, that world is the world we live in. So apparently, I'm blind. Uh, but that is rough. Losing in game fives to both Oxygen and Sonics. That's you're never gonna be able to redeem yourself if you do that. So I
Yeah,
didn't get to I didn't watch them play, but they got some serious stuff to iron out.
I didn't either, but just that's not what you want to see.
Yeah,
Obviously, they have the ability to turn it around. We've seen teams go out early and make the LAN, like Vitality, but I wouldn't put any money on it.
yeah. I mean, it wasn't like the rumor that this team like pretty much didn't even scrim before signing.
Yeah, and I think so I watched a little bit of Chicago Watch Party, and he said that G2 and Envy scrimmed the least with their new teams before this event.
Hmm.
And then
Certainly looks like it.
teams like Space Station, Version 1, and FaZe had a lot more time.
I feel like it's one thing if you're on the end of that deal where you're G2 and it's like, oh my God, we want this player. This is the piece. Like, this is going to make us so much better. And you go on, you're like, it's okay if we don't have practice. We're just so hype about this roster. I did not get the feeling that that was the same thing on the other side as MB. They're just kind of like, Drees is a really good player. We can have him, but it's the pieces don't obviously fit. And I feel like with this team, you would need a lot of scrim time. So I think that definitely hurt them.
Yeah, I think Mist actually, from what I heard, Mist had a really good tournament, but the other two uh, couldn't really, I guess, find their place in the rotation as much.
Yeah, I mean, you think about Drees is coming from G2, very, very, very different play style, and Envy are trying to adjust to losing Atomic, and filling it in with anyone else would be very strange. So this team has a lot of growth they're going to have to go through fast if they're going to be able to turn this around and have any hope of making the next LAN.
Yeah. All right. Let's move this into the playoffs.
Happened on the same day.
Yes. So the
Kind of
lower
weird.
bracket, the first round of the lower bracket happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just the first round.
Just the
So
first round.
I didn't catch any of these games. So if you did, let me know what happened. But Shopify beat RBG 3-1.
Mm-hmm.
Space Station beat Sonics 3-1. G2 went 3-2 against Vibrance. And Complexity went 3-2 against Rogue.
So I can let you take a guess about which series I watched.
I'm guessing you watched the Rogue Complexity series, but I'm guessing if anyone was picking one series to watch, they would have also watched that series.
Yeah, some of the others turned out to be better than you would have expected. Vibrance taking G2 to game 5, and then both the other sort of lesser rated teams putting up at least one game, so props to both those. But this Complexity Rogue series was really fun to watch. It was extremely ugly, and the first like 3 games were the Aqua Show. He was just causing so much disruption, was so fast, and was just doing so much damage. But the biggest problem is not only was he causing a lot of confusion for Complexity, he was also causing confusion for Rogue. So they weren't really able to turn it into consistent results. But the really cool thing to see for Complexity was what we sort of talked about a lot with them is they sort of not only like a lot of times with minor region teams, they're so used to dominating, they only know how to turn the pace up. But Complexity has sort of learned how to turn the pace down, which is sort of like the sign of a great team. And that's exactly what they did to Rogue. Shad was really struggling in the first man position, and in like the last 2 games of the series, he started to like play a lot more back, and it left Aqua sort of like on an island, and he didn't really have anyone to challenge anymore, and Rogue just sort of fell apart. So not a great tournament for Complexity in general, but this was a good result for them.
Yeah, I mean, I think both those teams will perform better in coming regionals.
Yeah, it was a bad draw for both of them.
Yeah.
Rogue pulling Complexity because Oxygen won their group, and Rogue were a pretty strong team in the 3 spot.
And then the only other thing I wanted to comment on this round was Vibrance G2 G2 won 3-2. Obviously, G2 is not having the best day, but I think Vibrance is severely underrated. They're consistently going through close qualifiers, and I think they're kind of edging themselves into that honorable mention 10 to 12 area of North America.
Yeah, and we haven't really had like a true like unsigned bubble team do that. I feel like a lot of the teams we've had in that area, like we had Torrent sort of break through there last season. And I know there's others that are sort of aiding me, like you could consider Xset that like as well. So yeah, you're 100% right. This team needs to be talked about more, and like they deserve a pedestal, 100%.
All right, let's move on to Saturday, day 2. I believe we started in the lower bracket, so that's where we'll start.
Mm-hmm.
G2 perfect swept Complexity.
Yikes.
This was where people were like, all right, G2's figured it out. Now they're dangerous.
Yeah, and it was 11 goals to 0 in the perfect sweep.
Yeah.
That's like a Sandrock scoreline.
It was not great.
Yeah, the other side of the lowers, not too much better. SSG swept Shopify in a much more respectable, almost perfect sweep of 6 goals to 1, but not really too much to talk about between those two matches. I don't think I even got to see them.
I saw them. Saturday was a day of sweeps. The first 4 series of the day were all sweeps.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the next series was Energy versus Oxygen. Energy swept Oxygen 4-0. Energy they just looked like the better team 100%. I mean,
and they are.
They are.
Yeah, it's kind of been the one thing Oxygen, like we talk about these runs they go on, but they've never really been able to, like, once it gets to like elimination time, I feel like they've never, other than the one top 4, but I feel like they kind of get like blown off the field most of the time, which is understandable.
Yeah. Yeah. The other upper semifinal, FaZe completely outclassed version 1. Yeah. FaZe is insane. Version 1 is better, but there's a gap.
Yeah.
There's a clear gap after the top 3 teams in NA right now.
Yeah. And this was also like when FaZe Clan was still peaking. Like I think they were peaking through the group, and they played out of their minds in this series and through like pretty much the entirety of the uppers. And so V1 kind of got the bad end of that.
Yeah. Wasn't great.
No.
So that brought us down to the lower bracket quarterfinals, where Oxygen faced Space Station, and we had our first game won by the losing team. Oxygen pulled out game 4 to bring it to 3-1, and then promptly lost game 5 to lose 4-1.
Yeah, I'm looking at the score sheet here though, and 3 OTs, no, 2 OTs, and then another 1-goal game to seal it in game 5. So good fight by Oxygen. But yeah, you're right. The only time in the out of the 5, all 4 of the previous series on the day had been sweeps. So Oxygen doing their best to stop that trend.
Yeah, no one was stopping Space Station on that day. They were determined to make that lower bracket run.
Yeah.
And Oxygen was not going to get in the way of that.
No, they most certainly did not. But the next one was definitely I'd say pretty easy competition, but the best series of the day.
Very easily the best series of the day, and one of the best series of the entire tournament. Version 1, G2 rematch from group stage in classic V1 fashion goes to game 7. Not in classic V1 fashion, they actually pulled out the win.
Yeah. It was a absolute gunfight between Atomic and Calm. And I think more often than not, Calm was coming out ahead of that, causing a lot of distress for Atomic in the form of bumps and demos. Really, really exciting back and forth series. And Daddy Tor able to ice it, which is a sight that has. I feel like a lot of the times when V1 loses in overtime, Torment gets at least one chance to put it away, and more often than not, he doesn't. So this was a huge moment for V1.
Yeah, it was a bit of a floater. I'm not entirely sure how it got in, but we take those. V1 played incredible. G2 played really well, especially JNaps. And Atomic played well, but JNaps had a really good series, I thought. And there were some clips out of this series. Atomic, I think, had like a 97-mile-an-hour shot at one point.
Oh, yeah, off the infield pass.
Yeah,
that was a
insane.
Rip. And just like the pure speed that G2 can get down the field. They've always been like that, but especially now with Atomic, who I feel like is one of the fastest players, like even just by the eye test. It's just, if this team can, like, you saw pieces in this tournament of like it working, but on the whole it wasn't.
Yeah, but version 1 looking like a more complete team than they ever have. Kind of having a clear first man, second man, third man, more so than I feel like a lot of teams do right now. But yeah, beast mode enabling Calm peeking, beast mode peeking when he's on the ball, Torment, locking it down, doing his thing. Got that clutch win. Unfortunately, they didn't take that momentum very well into Sunday. They got clapped by Space Station in the lower semis. But top 4 performance version 1, Space Station peaking at this point in the tournament. Daniel was no match.
Yeah.
Version 1 was no match for Daniel.
Day 3 Daniel was a sight to behold. But I think, like, I don't even know if at this point it's sort of like a secret point, but because a lot of people are saying it, but it wasn't just Daniel. Reddles and Arsenal were both playing to a level that we hadn't seen them play for the entirety of the fall. The entire team was just clicking. I think that in terms of total demos, Arsenal and Reddles were 1 and 2. Reddles being 1, Arsenal being 2, and then I think in demos per game it was 1 and 3.
Yes.
And I was digging back through the fall, and I don't think like either of them had pretty much been in top 5 for most of the regionals, and so they were playing to their extent like so much better. And Reddle's shooting was insane throughout the entirety of this tournament. He just when he's on, he just does not miss, just like perfect power shots to the corners, and so V1 just couldn't hang with that.
No, every time it looked like they, had a lead or had some momentum going, Daniel would like come off the ceiling and flip reset on them. It was not great. But there were demos flying all over the place in this. It was V1 put up a better fight in this series than they did against FaZe. But it was never going to happen. And I think no one is really surprised by that. But to see version 1 back in the top 4 is a good sign for them. And Space Station obviously had a good tournament.
Yeah. Like when V1 made top 4 in the fall, they squeaked through the Swiss, if I remember correctly. And then sort of by like a weird byproduct of being like in the 6th spot and Exit being 3rd, drew Exit in the top 8. And so didn't even really have to face a top team there. They were able to make top 4. Here, they went through the group of death. They beat G2. This is twice. This is a very, very legit top 4 finish. Is there a gap between them and the top 3 teams? Yes. But they were the 4th best team in this tournament, for sure.
Yes, I would agree with that. But I think it's time to move on to the upper bracket final.
Yeah.
Energy versus FaZe Clan.
I think this might have been my favorite series of the tournament. FaZe looked very reminiscent of RLCS BDS, with just the sheer amount of pressure they can generate on offense is just absurd. And Energy were doing their best top blokes impression of just absorbing with the most insane saves. And it just didn't really feel like there would be a chance for NRG just with the sheer amount of like shots they were taking against them. But sort of like the theme for the tournament is we can get as excited as we want about everything else going on in North American Rocket League. But at the end of the day, the general energy stands atop.
Yeah, I think this series really showed the adaptability of NRG. They had not played FaZe yet in an event, this new FaZe roster, and FaZe came out the better team in the first 3 games, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And then NRG kind of flipped it around, not took over, but was able to figure out their game plan and basically turn the whole series around and win. Certainly not comfortably, but they didn't even, I don't know. I don't really know what I'm saying, but they were the better team by the end of this series.
And I really thought that in Game 5 when FaZe won 3-0, I thought that was it. I thought FaZe had sort of like, think of a verbal meme, the scene in Batman when Bane breaks Batman's back. I thought FaZe had just taken Batman and just dropped them on the knee. But NRG just show that they are so smart and so much more resilient and just like you said, so much more adaptable than anyone else in the region and able to take it against what seemed to be the best team in the world at that point.
Yeah. Plus, no matter what kind of talent is on the other side of the field, no matter how much sleep he gets, Justin is still no matter what he's doing, you could argue he's the best player in the world. No matter what happens, he's just always the best player on NRG, and NRG the best team on the field. It's kind of crazy.
For so long too. He's been doing this for so long. I don't think anyone in Rocket League has been at the top for as long as he has. He just, as the game changes, he just continues to get better. He's stayed on the top in terms of mechanics and creativity in a way that very few players have, and he's got the perfect system around him with this current team.
Yep. So that led us to another rematch, Space Station versus FaZe Clan. In groups, FaZe got the better Space Station, but on Championship Sunday, it was Space Station who took the dub.
I think that it all sort of blends in my head together, but this was like Daniel v first killer and Daniel living up to the name and just showing that this kid is clutch as hell. I don't know how many 0-second goals he had, but it felt like every single game was ending in a Daniel 0-second goal or just clutch play. And I think that a lot of people thought that FaZe were sort of the better team coming out of the offseason, and Space Station did their best to shush that up.
I think both of these teams improved with the moves that they made.
Mm-hmm.
And I think FaZe was a little bit off on Sunday. I don't think AJ was playing his best. But all props Space Station coming out, getting that revenge, taking out their old teammate, winning this series 4-2.
Mm-hmm. And this is pretty big redemption. Top of my head, Space Station made maybe one top 4. I know they went out top 8 twice. So I think every time they lost the eventual tournament winners, but they had not been this deep in the entirety of RLCS 3.
Yeah. Besides the RLC, I'm ignoring the RLCS 3 comment, but yeah, this was actually the same exact top 4 as the fall regional one.
Okay, cool. But different finalists.
Yes.
Space Station getting their revenge.
Yes, but Space Station in the grand final kind of looked like they ran out of gas a little bit. They plowed through the entire lower bracket, but they came to NRG needing a bracket reset, and then Arsenal owned gold like 3 times.
Yeah, and NRG was just in like Terminator form, and it's just one of those things where, you know, when you're coming out of the lowers, you have to be NRG twice. Like, come on, Like, what do you think is going to happen? They put up a good fight, but it just felt like it was out of their grasp during the entire time.
Yeah, but they looked like they were having fun, which is really good to see.
Yeah.
And energy are inevitable.
God tweet from Daniel after the event saying something like along the lines of GG's, wish my teammates would stop goaling. So I think that the vibes are really high for Space Station, in which the happier you have Arsenal and Reddles, the much better off you're going to be as a team.
Absolutely. So that concludes our recap, very long recap of this event. Energy 1, Space Station 2, Phase 3, Version 1, 4, and then the rest of the field spread out. That way, there are more points given out for this in winter events than in spring events. So
yeah, builds up as the year goes on, and that's what decides the major spots is the cumulative points. Right? No, I'm tripping. No, that's what describes worlds.
Yes.
But the major is winter ranking, so these results have a lot of weight.
Yes.
Basically, right. You want to do good.
And win games, do good, get money.
Yep.
Now let's get on our boat.
Because the regional didn't just happen in North America. No.
No. There was if we head down under, there was a bit of a chaos going on.
Yeah, real shakeup.
Yeah, so for Kidden, it was a roster that I think finished in I think they made the grand finals of Fall Regional 3. Also did the exact same lower bracket run that Space Station did, going through the entire lowers and then losing in the grand finals. But in the process, they beat Ground Zero, they beat Riot, and they beat Renegades.
All while being unsigned, might I add.
Yes. So the grand final was Direwolves, and for Kidden, Direwolves went to the upper bracket, beating Renegades in the process as well, and then beating for Kidden in the grand final. I think this is the first time that neither Ground Zero or Renegades has made the final in a very long time. Could be a slight changing of the guard down there.
Yeah, I wonder if it's just like a little bit of complacency. I mean, obviously, all these teams had a much longer off season than either Renegades or Ground Zero did. But I still think at the end of the day, we're going to be seeing those two teams at the major, but it's going to be a much more difficult path if these other teams like Direwolves have been like in the top 4 conversation in OCE for what feels like the past year. But if for Kidden are going to be a new challengers and there's still Riot hanging around, there's going to be a lot more parity in the future, I think.
Plus, for Kidden has a guy named Banana Head on their team. How can you not like that?
You hate fun if you don't like someone named Banana Head. OC's wild with their names.
They got some good ones down there.
But all around, I didn't get to see much of it. I probably won't catch up too much with OCE until the major, but seems like it was a really fun event. And who doesn't love upsets?
I actually caught a little bit of it because it starts at a reasonable time for me now. So I caught a little bit of it, but I think I fell asleep while watching it and forgot everything that I watched, so I can't provide any actual analysis.
Once again, the gods of minor regions.
Yes, which takes us to Middle East. Sandrock won. Are there any shockers there?
No, the finals wasn't either Falcons or Ultimates, so Skites, don't know too much about that roster, but nice to see. Oh, it's got Fahad, who I believe won the Gold Mine once tournament in EU. So there's always been a lot of hype about him. I've definitely heard of Evil before. So just excited to see a fourth team sort of emerge. So Skites beat Ultimates twice. I don't know if they played Falcons, but yeah, Sandrock won, produced some insane clips along the way. What's new?
Yeah. Apparently Senzo apparently isn't fully retired still. He subbed in for Khaled on Friday for the group stage, and they didn't lose a single game. So
Respect.
he's still all right if he needs to play for them. But
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't think this conversation is remotely worth humoring, but there's been some talk on Reddit about whether or not Sandrock are actually better with Senzo than O'Khaled.
I don't think anyone who watches them would say that.
I mean, you know,
My
O'Khaled
Johnny
plays.
Boy, or my opinions of NA mostly come from Johnny Boy, or like my information, and he pretty much just says O'Khaled's the best player in that region, so I'm gonna trust him.
Yeah, I think the narrative coming out is that O'Khaled is selfish and spends too much time on the ball, and Senzo enables the others. And if you've ever watched them play, it's the complete opposite. Khaled is so selfless. But they're back. Not that they ever left.
Yes, they are. All right, and over in APAC South, 3 Rats won it. That is the old Pulse clan. So they've now won every single event. But I guess UH put up a good fight in the grand finals.
Yeah. Good to see. I don't think we covered. Did we cover 3 Rats no longer being a part of Pulse?
Yes, we did, I think.
Okay. We either talked about it on or off podcast. Doesn't matter. Same team 4 times.
Well, they did make a roster move. They dropped Ballerese, and I'm trying to figure out which one of these players is new. It's either one of. I think it's Chaotic is new.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't remember seeing a French flag.
Yeah, he's French, but lives in Thailand.
Well, they're still on top.
Yes, they are.
Is that it for minor regions?
That is all the minor regions, I believe, unless Sub-Saharan Africa did something. They did not.
Okay. Time for our favorite minor region?
Oh, yes. Europe. Close qualifier. Lot of stuff happened in this one. Just to, I guess, go over it quickly. T and Williams Resolve went 3-0. T is the roster of, is it Tox, Exo, and Atomic?
Yep.
Who are Luminosity, we think.
Yeah.
And they hold the old SK points.
Yeah. We've talked about this team a good amount, but they will not be a pickup team for long.
No.
It's probably Luminosity. I have no idea what's happening there. I'm so confused. But yes. they won.
Yep. 0-0 Nation, Team Singularity, and Rix. 0-0 continues their form of qualifying for all the events. Singularity and Rix, I think, are each qualifying for their first regionals of this season.
And in their game 4, they took down Triple Trouble and Team Queso. So very impressive clutch rounds from those 2 rosters that we did not get to see any really of in the fall, and the return of the British Renaissance to Rocket League.
Yes. I think I saw a tweet that there were like 15 Brits in the new event or something, or 16.
I think it was 15. It was a Jack tweet.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or 16 if you include Ireland. Because, as I'll say now, Navi with Virtuoso qualified 3-2 along with Cuxer's Minions are back, and Team Queso made it through, sweeping Heroic in the round 5. Not a great showing for them with their new roster. And then Navi swept Guild in round 5 as well. I think we mentioned that earlier.
Yeah. And Cuxer's Minions, unfortunately, the Triple Trouble revival was not able to clutch regional qualification. Cookser's Minions for their back-to-back regionals now. So I believe they made Regional 3 last time. Cookser's Minions hanging around. The legend lives on. We lost Kernovi, but the other OG GOAT is still alive.
Yeah, so there's some pretty notable players that aren't going to be here. Obviously, the heroic roster with Panda, Oli, and Yukio aren't there. Guild, Triple Trouble, Roniki, VK, Sail, and Dorito. Who else? The Stormtroopers roster didn't qualify, as well as Pepitos Canyons. Pepitos Canyons with Zamway, Demenza, and Tekwo's. So, obviously, still a lot of depth in EU.
Yeah, feels like a very different scene than last time, to be honest. Like the top side of EU didn't really change, but the 16 through 24 slot shuffled a lot. So it's exciting to see new players coming up in the scene and new teams with success.
Absolutely. We have, I think, two new teams coming up.
Qualifying for the actual event?
Yes.
That sounds right.
All right, I need to know, as we move into the Apollo Open, the groups aren't officially announced, but they are posted on the Reddit somewhere. So I'm just going to try to find those real quick while you give us a preview of what's going to happen with Apollo.
With Apollo, I'm looking at it right now, and there hasn't been, this whole offseason, the talk has been NA, NA, NA. And it's almost like easy to forget about just how good these EU teams were at the LAN, and that this is the region coming off where, as far as on the field, there should be much more hype about EU. BDS looked unreal. Dignitas showed levels that we haven't seen before. Endpoint and Semper both had really good performances. So expect more excitement and chaos out of EU, even though it hasn't necessarily, at least it hasn't been on my mind quite as much. But I can't wait for this weekend. It's going to be so much fun.
Yes. All right. I now have the groups ready to go. Bam. There we are. So Group A, these are not officially announced, but these should be correct based on Reddit math.
Never fails.
So, yes, Group A, we have BDS, 00 Nation, T, and Singularity. Group B is Dignitas, Misfits, Queso, Rix. C is Semper, EG, Williams Resolve, Cuxer's Minions. And then D is Endpoint, Vitality, Carmine Corp, and Navi.
All right. Do you have the RPG ready?
I do have the RPG ready. So, for Group A, you're predicting who gets second.
Okay. And just for a reminder, RPG, how this works is Colin, before the show, does a little random generation of which, for each group, we're trying to predict who gets one random spot. And so I was randomly assigned who is going to get second in Group A, which is BDS, 00, T, and Singularity.
Yes, before the show. I definitely did it before the show.
Before the show. Mm-hmm.
And we're always in the middle while tuning you out.
Yep. Why you gotta expose the dark side? They don't have to know how disorganized we are. They can. But second place, I mean, at this point, whatever I say doesn't matter because it won't come true. But
just before you predict, disclaimer on the predictions: we're not always right. Last week, Austin went 0 for 4 to make his overall prediction record 1 for 22. And I went 2 for 4 to make mine 9 for 22. So we're clearly not the best at this.
I still stand by the fact that a lot of the stuff I say that isn't in the prediction context turns out to be true.
Yes.
Whenever I have a
predictions.
I'll make my prediction and then I'll have a throwaway comment, and the throwaway comment will come true, but my prediction won't. I want to see the revival of Tox and EXO. So, and Atomic, honestly, he looked really exciting last year and hasn't done anything this season. So, I'm going to take T at 2. I don't think there's a chance that BDS doesn't take the first spot here, just with how good they looked at LAN. So, I'm going to put T in the 2 spot.
And I've been gifted with predicting the 1 slot for this group, so I'm going to go with BDS.
Did that happen last time too?
No, I did not get energy.
You didn't get energy. Okay,
No.
I thought it was rigged.
No, it's not rigged. It's completely random. Although I did have to do some adjustments, but that's I'm not going to talk about that now. Just because I didn't want us to be predicting the same slot, so I moved some things around. But that prediction was not affected.
Okay.
I've closed everything. Okay, Group B. Dig, Misfits, Queso, and Rix. You are predicting the 4th slot.
I'm going Queso. And I think that Rix are going to come into this tournament with a lot of excitement and momentum. And I think that Queso are going to be feeling a little bit more pressure. And so I think that that's just, it could obviously go anyway. I could see Queso sliding anywhere from 2 to 4, but just my gut says I want to see Speed do something.
You know, I'm happy you did that actually, because your prediction record is so bad. This means Queso has to advance.
I'm using my powers for good, remember?
Yes. All right. I have the 2nd place team in this group, and I'm going to go with Dignitas. I think Misfits were motivated by them just missing out and kind of choking away that major spot. And I think they're going to come out absolutely firing and take that 1 slot.
I could see that happening. I could also see them getting 4th. So I like your prediction more than mine. So we'll go with that.
All right.
Oh man, I should have predicted Misfits 4th just to save them.
All right. Group C. Semper, Evil Geniuses, Williams, and Cuxer's Minions. You are predicting the 1 seed.
I feel like this is the hardest group to predict one.
That's definitely possible.
Number 1, I don't really know why I'm thinking this, but I think it's going to be Williams.
Oh boy, what a prediction.
We haven't heard from them in a little while, and I think Semper could easily trip up against any 3 of these teams. It's stupid because Semper's going to go 2-1, and so I'm essentially predicting Williams to go 3-0, and I'm going to stick with it. So cars go vroom vroom. Williams makes race cars.
All right. Well, I'm gonna do something unprecedented.
And
I'm gonna predict Williams to finish 3rd.
You idiot.
For the first time ever, we're making a prediction on the same team.
That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. They are not the 3rd best team in this group. You're insane.
They are most certainly the 3rd best team in this group. They are better than Cuxer's Minions. They are significantly worse than Evil Geniuses. Not significantly, but definitely a tier below the other 2 teams.
I'd put them right with EG.
I think they're one step below EG.
Yeah, we'll get to that later. But that takes us to the last group.
Yes, Endpoint, Vitality, Carmine, and Navi. You have the 3rd slot. I have the 4th slot.
So would you
blessed with these predictions? Not gonna lie.
Yeah, it's almost like you made them.
It's random. It's in the name.
That's what they all say. Group D. I guess this is the closest thing you have to a group of death, right?
Yeah. Even Group B could be deathy.
Group B could be deathy. They're all, and I mean that's based off of hype more than results.
Yeah.
But this does have two teams that went to LAN. Carmine, which a lot of people believe had the quality to make LAN, and Navi, who've shown a lot of bright spots. For the third spot, I think I'll go Vitality. I think yeah, I'll go Vitality. I think they'll sneak their way in by the skin of their teeth, like they always do. They'll do just enough to not have to make a roster change, is my prediction for them this split.
And I agree with that. I also think Carmine should not get last, which means I kind of have to put Navi in last. So sorry, boys.
Colin living up to his tradition of always fading Navi.
I've faded Navi a lot, and it hasn't always worked out, but I think it's worked out a couple times.
At least once, I'd say.
Yeah.
But so that is the RPG. Really, really fun to follow, I'm sure, for audio listeners. I don't even do we want to try and recap that mess, or
no? If you want to recap, this will be tweeted out on Wednesday in a nice little graphic, and I will also add it to the Discord.
And if you're listening on either YouTube or Twitter, leave a comment below with your own RPG.
Yes. Throw 1, 2, 3, 4 in a randomizer, or A, B, C, D in a randomizer, and predict in that order what seeds you want.
Or simply you could just copy either of ours.
Yes.
And make a much better list.
Or just fill in the gaps of what we didn't predict. If you want.
And too, all sorts of fun.
Yes.
What an interactive show.
Very interactive. Should we ask for callers?
I think we should turn it into
a radio show.
We should turn it into a hotline.
Should we stream live and ask for callers?
I think that would break Twitch, so I don't think we should do that.
All right. Is it time?
I think it's time.
The messiest power rankings of all time.
And we're already an hour deep, so our brains are fried.
Oh, yes.
I'm about to throw out some horrendous takes on here.
Yes.
Power rankings for the region of Europe.
I'm starting us off before you can screw everything up. BDS at 1.
Boo.
No explanation needed.
Boring. Boo.
I do hate the new logo, though.
Yeah, new logo sucks. Good. Bring back the blue. Number 2. I think that this is a real sort of coin flip. I think arguments can be made for 2 teams. I guess 3 teams, but I only really want to think about 2 teams, which are Dignitas and Endpoint. And if I'm predicting for the future, I would have to give it to Dignitas. I think that they have a higher ceiling than Endpoint does, even though Saiku is quite literally one of the biggest talents we've had coming to Rocket League in a while, but so is Jorius. So number 2, Dig.
I would agree with that. So I want to pull up the overall standings here. All ranking. This is including LAN.
Yep.
So for 3, obviously this is between Endpoint and Semper at this point. I'm gonna go Endpoint. They won 2 events. They were only 1 stage behind Semper at the LAN, and I think they lost a phase or energy, one of the 2.
Endpoint?
Yeah.
Endpoint lost a phase.
Okay. They lost the energy in group stage. Both respectable losses. I think they're number 3.
Yeah. They also beat G2 in the final round of the Swiss. So
okay, yeah.
I think that's a very fair shout. I am a little disappointed you didn't pick Vitality. Or even consider them.
And half considering not putting Vitality even on the power rankings.
Number 4, Semper. By default. No one's even close. Literally, no one's even close. If you look at the standings, no one's there. If you look at quality of play, no one's there. if you try and bring vitality into this conversation, which I don't think anyone outside of France would ever do, you are out of your mind. Semper, coming off a really great major, an all-around decent fall, are behind in points, so I think our takes are justified. They haven't won an event. Every other team above them has. I think that they're very clearly in this 4th spot, and there is a very big tier gap below them.
Yes. That brings us to 5. Now, on overall points, Vitality is 5 by like 170 points. But that's really only because I got 140 free points for making the major. And, just showing up and doing the bare minimum to beat the worst teams of Sam and APAC South or APAC North. So I'm not putting them at 5. I'm going to put Misfits at 5. I know they ended poorly. I believe in them. I think that's a good roster.
Yeah,
I think they're the 5th best team in Europe.
I think that they have, out of all these teams, they've showed the most consistency and the highest ceiling, other than that one tournament.
None of these teams have shown any consistency.
Wow, it's really sad to think that they had the exact same results as Carmine, just in different orders. It felt like Misfits' season was so much better.
Yeah.
Number 6?
Yes.
So we consider history, form, and future.
Direction. Yes.
Do we turn into a Vitality hate podcast?
Yes.
Number 6, Carmine Corp. I think that number 6 is Vitality. It is. It is. It
Look
is.
who I put for 7.
It is.
Look who I have at 7.
Number 6 is Vitality.
Do we have to?
You have to.
Do we have to?
No one else out of these teams got a top 2.
But Vitality, I don't. They're just getting worse. They're old.
Who's better, Alpha or Astral?
Alpha.
Exactly.
But who's better? Itachi and Steak or Fairy Peak and K-Dub?
On paper, one of those is much better, but they haven't shown it.
They're old. They're washed.
No, number 6 has to be Vitality.
I'm fine.
I'm not going to war with France.
All right. I'll make 7. I mean, you put Carmine, which is a French org.
Yeah, but they don't have the same.
They may speak French, but they aren't French in any way.
Nope.
But I'll put Carmine at 7.
I hate Europe.
I'm putting an 8 for you as well.
Yeah,
since I didn't get to choose. 8 is Evil Geniuses.
8 is Evil Geniuses. They had a good fall. They would have been better if they got Tox, but they're still a good team.
9. I feel like I know where you have to go.
Yeah.
So there's a 3-way tie for 9th on the standings.
Mm-hmm.
You predicted one of those teams to finish above EG and Semper in the group. And predicted the other to finish last in the group stage.
Just pick what you want. Pick what you want.
It's your pick.
Oh, I'm 9?
Yeah, you're 9, right?
You definitely went first.
Oh, I am 9.
Yeah, you just wrote Evil Geniuses for me.
Oh, I did do that, didn't I?
Yeah.
I'm going queso. Screw you.
Number 10. 0 Nation.
No way.
0 Nation. They had a really good fall. And I think this team is really strong. They have the veteran presence of Flame and 2 really good players around them. I'm going 0-0 Nation.
You predicted Williams to win their group.
That's a separate exercise. My predictions don't have anything to do with my power rankings.
All right, well, I'm only doing one honorable mention of Williams
Yeah,
because
but do Cooks.
they only, yeah, I guess I could do them.
I feel like you should throw in and like maybe T deserves an honorable mention.
Oh yeah,
T are cracked, but they haven't done anything. Cooks has made back-to-back regionals.
Yes, they have.
And they also didn't get bounced out of the one they went into.
Yeah, because I don't want to put Heroic on here because they didn't make the event.
Yeah, but I think you're right that there is a very much a 3-way tie for that 9 spot, and Williams Resolve is probably a little bit closer just in terms of results than the other 2.
But you didn't put them in anyway.
No, I did not. Nope. They're winning their group though, so that's hype.
Yeah, they're gonna finish top 6, but they're not in the top 10.
Yeah, they're not in the top 10 now, but they're gonna be.
That's what power rankings looks to the future.
You want me to put them at 6? I will.
No. It's a group exercise.
I can swap them in Vitality. I'll happily do that.
I tried to fade Vitality.
Can I rewrite history?
No.
Please?
It's done. Our official power rankings are BDS, Dig, Endpoint, Semper, Misfits, Vitality, Carmine, EG, Queso, 0-0, with honorable mentions to Williams, Cuxer's Minions, and T/Luminosity.
So that's like our official power rankings.
Official.
But our real power rankings is Williams Resolve at 6. With a little arrow to the side pointing upwards. Just because they have a guaranteed lock at top 6 doesn't mean that's where they're stopping. Oh, Sizen. It's Sizen season, baby.
Thank you all for listening. We're going to end it off here. Yeah, this was a mess.
You didn't even try and save it.
What am I supposed to save? You're just rambling on about Williams and Vitality. Who even knows what's going on?
Thank you for joining. Peace.
Adios.